listening to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and more. Here's your host, KickedTripod.
Good morning, Overwatch League fans. This is your Overwatch League daily episode for January 5th, 2018. With just over 20 players in Overwatch League representing Europe, there are many players who are left out of the inaugural season. 4 to 6 members of Rogue, one of the most dominant teams in Western Overwatch, are left on the outside looking in for now. With that being said, some of the most well-respected players in Overwatch League also hail from Europe. On today's show, I'm joined by Noukky, who is really an all-around European Overwatch specialist and expert. She's here today to discuss the current state of the European Overwatch scene as we approach the inaugural season. So first, what I'd like to do is talk about some of the European players that made it into Overwatch League's inaugural season. Most notably, I would say, is Soon and Unco, not because they're better than all the other European Overwatch players, but they were picked while the rest of the well-performing Rogue roster were not. How do you think they've performed in Overwatch League so far?
I personally think that Soon and Anko performed pretty well with LA Valiant. They both have the necessary LAN experience and the experience with international teams to not be affected too much by not playing with Rogue. I don't think it's a necessity for them to communicate in French particularly. Especially Soon on Tracer played really well because Placer is not as team dependent as Anko on support, so he can stand out as a solo player way more.
One of the surprises for me personally was how Linkser performed on the Houston Outlaws during the inaugural preseason. I would love to know where he really rates for you out of European DPS, and I'd also love to know how much of his performance had to do with being able to play across a great team player like Jake.
I personally think that Linkser is probably one of the top DPS in Europe. He has a really, really big hero pool, is a very flexible player, and can play similar to Twig very many heroes, either projectile or hitscan, even off tanks on a very high level that is suitable for OWL. I would definitely put him up there in terms of versatility with Twig. He definitely cannot compete with specialists on their characters like all the very good Tracer players or, for example, Time 1 Hitscan. But I think his versatility definitely makes him stand out. I think Jake and Linkser play off each other really well because of their rather flexible hero pools in terms of being on hitscan or on projectile DPS. They can adapt to situations in games rather quickly and adapt as necessary to those different heroes with this mixed hero pool to have the optimal combination for the situation necessary. Also, Linkser is a really outstanding Widowmaker, so that makes it even more adaptable because Jake can switch between hitscan DPS and projectile DPS in that manner if they want to bust out the Widowmaker.
Are there any other European players in Overwatch League that we should really be watching? Maybe ones that are kind of sneaking under the radar in favor of players who are a little bit more universally recognized like Taimu or Tvik?
I definitely, in my opinion, Bikus and Shaz. I think they are one of the best backlines in OWL. They have shown in both of their games that they play off each other really well, and seen them play on Giganti and winning contenders with them, and now in OWL both playing for LA Gladiators. I think it was a really good pickup for them. Of course, the well-known European people like Twig and Taimu and definitely Chips are up there to watch. But I think those two are the more unknown players that definitely will stand out within the season.
So I think it's pretty clear that the EU overall is probably pretty underrepresented in Overwatch League so far. Who do you think has the skill and the mindset that should be in, who isn't right now?
I think one of the players that everybody expected to get an OWL offer and that didn't receive one is Mosasa. Mossessa is one of the best European tanks there was around Contenders. He has the complete package of having good Reinhardt play, good Winston play, also a few niche heroes as far as I know. Plus his shot calling and leadership ability is really up there. He helped his former teams in Laser Kittens and later C9 plus Cyclones, where he was before that, to good success. Another one of those caliber players, which I would say in terms of leadership, a tiny bit versatility, and definitely helped his team to succeed, is Nox. Nox joined Rogue, I think around Atlantic Showdown. I'm not really sure about that. But since then, they performed really well with him on Lucio and his shot calling. And later he switched when there was this triple trade between Luminosity, Rogue, and Misfits. He switched to the tank role and adapted pretty quickly, actually, to help his team succeed again. As we know, there are many Tracer players from Europe in OWL at the moment. And I think one of the ones that got missed, or that missed out, was definitely Davin. He helped his team Giganti to great success in Contenders, and I think he would be a solid pickup for OWL too. And the last person I would like to point out that maybe is overseen is Hafikul. Hafikul is one, or was the tank player of 1-3, which had also pretty good success in Contenders. And I think the only one that got picked up from this team was Snillo, but he is a really strong off-tank player, and he was definitely one of the core elements for the team's success.
So one of the theories as to why we aren't seeing as many European players in Overwatch League is that there's going to be more expansion teams in Europe, and they're hanging on to not come to the US, basically. Do you think that that might be why we're not seeing as many EU players? Is that lack of EU teams?
No, I don't think the lack of European players in OWL is because of the lack of European OWL teams or franchises. I think it's more that people tend to overlook the European scene a tiny bit. There wasn't very many tournaments to play. There was not much stuff to prove themselves. And so just for Contenders, it falls a tiny bit flat. For example, everyone was really surprised with how Giganti and especially Linkser and the backline performed. So it showed that the European scene is lesser known in other scenes, and people have to really try to prove themselves a tiny bit more than normally, or other players, Sevilla and A players, in my opinion.
So one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of people who are concerned about the tier 2 team, the tier 2 scene, for Overwatch, and are a little bit worried that it might not be enough to really have a strong competitive tier 2 scene. Do you think Contenders and Open are enough to develop the Overwatch League level talent necessary, especially in Europe?
If we just talk about developing talent, I really think that it's possible with the path to pro that Blizzard anticipated. One of the problems or struggles that I see in it is incentives for the players and for organizations too. It's more about having a path that has sustainability and has enough sustainability for the players to have a rather safe way to get where they want to be, and which is OWL. If you want to get started, Open Division is a really nice thing. It's regular competition, 2 times a week, a best of 5, which gets you used to tournament play, which gets you used to tournament formats. Contenders, on the other hand, is supposed to be more sustainable and has more prize pool, offers more incentive for players, plus the exposure you get from probably getting streamed. But on the other hand, it needs to be a tiny bit more than that. I'm personally hoping that in the off-season there will be additional tournaments, and that orgs will definitely be interested into investing into Contenders teams. One of the ways they can get their money back is by investing into a team, and with the buyout clause that is in the Contenders rules, hoping that OWL teams will buy out their players, but for example, for orgs that are aiming to get into OWL in the long run, this rule is a bit, or makes them a bit hesitant, let's say that. Because you want to develop a contenders team, you want to do good in contenders over the 3 seasons that it has over the year. And if you want to look into OWL, there is definitely the possibility that the team you developed that you want to go into OWL with as an org that wants to invest into Overwatch can get poached away because of this clause. So it's really unrewarding for some orgs, especially for them that want to look into OWL, to invest into it. So I hope there will be orgs that still want to take that risk and support their players nonetheless to make the tier 2 scene more sustainable for everyone and not only for the players upwards.
I want to ask a question that we normally wouldn't ask on this show, and it's more about player and talent development, because that's something that you're really focused on doing right now for the Overwatch competitive scene. So for all the up-and-comers to Overwatch, what would you say is the most important thing to focus on when looking to make the leap into tournament-level play? And what really should those new players look to bring to a team as a whole?
I think one of the most important things that you can do if you are in comp, if you play really well, you're top 500 every season, is definitely find places like the Cow League Discord or even other Discords, even the Reddit looking for team thing, to look yourself out for a team. Like, try to nail down a role that you would like to play. If you play DPS, try to nail down, do I want to be more the hit scan player? Do I want to be a more flexible player? And try to find a team for you and try to start scrimming, because scrimming is definitely the more effective practice to get used to tournament play than ranked is. Ranked can be really hard at times, especially mentally for you, and you can develop pretty bad habits if you only practice in ranked, which will definitely not work in tournament play or in team play in general. So get started, get yourself a team, even if it's like work your way up the ladder. Even in teams, it's not only competitive ladder, there is a team ladder too, where you start in more amateur teams and then just mature into the higher tier scenes. Try to start playing open division. It's a really nice way to have regular competition, like 2 matches a week is not too much commitment for somebody that wants to look into competitive play. And just go from there. See if you want to play weeklies with that team. If you find another team that's maybe interested in you that is a bit higher level, and work your way up. That's the best thing you can do. You should always try to improve yourself, be a good teammate, try to communicate directly and honest with your teammates, and try to help each other to improve where you can and to see where the team can fit in and can be. It's definitely important that you focus on your own mistakes more than those of your teammates. Sure, you should tell them, yeah, if something is wrong, but try to be the best you can for the team before you try to change the team towards you.
My thanks to Noukky for stopping by this morning and giving us some insight on the European Overwatch scene. Make sure to follow her on Twitter at NoukkyIzzy. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to be joined by OPC caster and analyst Kevin Averill Walker. He's going to be on the show discussing the New York Excelsior as they get ready to take on the Houston Outlaws. Remember, you can find the show on any of your favorite podcast outlets, including iTunes, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and we're also on the front page of winstonslab.com. We're also on YouTube. Click on the link in the show notes to find us. If you want to stay in touch, email me at overwatchleaguedaily@gmail.com, tweet me at OWLDailyShow, or join our Discord at discord.me/OWLDailyShow. That's way too much to remember, as always, so just go to overwatchleaguedaily.com. You can find links to everything right there. Thanks for stopping by today, January 5th. We'll be back tomorrow, January 6th. for another episode of Overwatch League Daily.